All right. All right. We're back. You're listening to the Free American Hour. I'm Clay Douglas. My guest is Rick Light with the well-regulated American militias. Not a militia in itself. You're not a militia.
No, sir. We are a militia support site. We encourage the growth and the buildup of militias nationwide. We encourage people to do it correctly, by the way. Look, folks, you've got a lot of states out there that have constitutional clauses for the civilian militia. Now, I know a lot of the militia seems to have a problem with that, but look here. If we want those elected officials to obey the law, then we have to obey it ourselves. Now, if the provision is there for the civilians militia, you need to use it in the way that your Constitution is designed, the way your state Constitution is set up for it. To give you an example of something I don't like here in Texas, I don't really like the idea that Governor Rick Perry is our commander-in-chief. But guess what, folks? That doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is it's the law. He is the commander-in-chief. Now, as long as that governor's not telling the militia to do something unconstitutional and it's arbitrary to the civilian populace, we shouldn't have a problem with that. It is the governor's job to provide, actually to provide for the militias in their states. That is the law. The oath to that law. Now, this is the neat thing if you set it up in the way that I'm describing. I'll give you an example of what happened in my presentation to my county commissioners. I talked with my sheriff and my judge 2 weeks before my presentation. They agreed that, yes, this is the law of Texas, that we should oblige it. Well, to be polite, to be respectful, they wanted me to present it to the county commissioners. So I called up the person that books presentations to the county commissioner, and I got it booked. The end result was this. I went in with a safe structure for the militia to join in. I provided that for them. I provided the National Standards, Article 1, which clearly states what a militia's duty is. I also provided a referral out of our state constitutional. The referral was U.S. and Texas law on independent militias. And then I took it the next step, folks. I got the clause, the law, out of our state constitution referring to the civilians militia, which in Texas is called the reserve militia. And I copied that information off and I put that into a packet. And I gave that out to each person in that county commissioners meeting. Now, I didn't talk about conspiracy theories, 9/11, Waco, none of that stuff. That was all left out of the picture. I stuck to the law, what the law of Texas is, what our duties as militia would be, and what their duties as elected officials will be. The end result was this. One of the county commissioners asked if there would be a vote posted on that. Another county commissioner replied, no, sir, we cannot vote on this. And the other one asked, well, why? And he says, because we are oathed into office to provide the law. If we were to have a vote and you was to come out no, you're disparaging the right of Texans. And we cannot do that. We would be in violation of our oath. And then the question was asked to me, Mr. Light, have you built a unit yet in the county? And my answer to that was no. And I was asked why. And I said, well, the answer was simple. I told him, I said, look, first I wanted to provide a safe structure for everybody to be able to join, just like the law provides. Second off, well, we wanted to include the right people with the structure, which by the Constitution is you all. Is the sheriff, the judge, county commissioners, and our emergency management director. Well, folks, even one of the sheriff candidates was there. He even stood up and he even said he would, if he got elected, he would support what I had presented in that thing. I got no objection at all because I stuck to the law.
You know,
that's how powerful the law can be.
The thing about Brinkerhoff's lecture to law enforcement, he was asked if he's talking about National Guard. No, they're too expensive. We need a cheap source of well-armed, well-trained, organized, disciplined troops. breaker off.
Well, yeah, the Texas Constitution is broke up into 3 sections of the law. You have the Texas National Guard, you have the Texas State Guard, and then you have the Reserve Militia, which is your citizens' militia. Look, the founders didn't give a Second Amendment that quoted a well-regulated militia as necessary to the security of a free state. The rights for the people to keep and bear arms. They didn't give that just to the National Guard.
That's right.
They enumerated as everybody's right. Am I correct?
Let's talk about the law for just a second. When I was working with a presidential candidate as his bodyguard, speechwriter, and driver, we were in a college in Maine, and a bunch of the students, young men, were real nervous and upset. And I said, "What's the matter, boys?" "Well, you guys are the militia, aren't you?" I said, "Yeah." "How old are you?" "Well, I'm 20. You? 21. "Well, guess what, boys? Are you afraid when you look in the mirror? Because you're the militia."
That's right.
18 to 45 able-bodied males can be called up by the governor.
Actually, Texas says 18 to 62.
Oh, I like that. I like that. But
yeah, I mean, they look at.
To heck with that.
And that's why I'm there. I want to make sure people understand something. Just because there's an age bracket that they quote doesn't mean that after 40-something that you're no longer able-bodied. If you're still able-bodied to serve, you can still serve the militia. I don't care if you're 80.
That's right.
People need to understand that. Yeah, that age that they put in there is just kind of like a bracket that they would expect people to join. But if you're still able-bodied and you're still physically out, well, you have a right to serve.
And sir, we do. Now, what I pointed out to my audiences when I'm giving speeches, I've talked about the whole true face of FEMA. I said when 9/11 happened, regardless of who was behind it, who did it, we didn't need troops controlling the citizens in New York City. The firemen, the civilians, the janitor got people out of that building. There was Americans working to help Americans. Now, I think that's the way it should be. I don't want a troop coming in. You know, if it's our soldiers and they want to chip in, there's the National Guard, and they want to chip in and help and work beside the people, no problem. Got no problem with that. If they want to point a gun at me...
I've got a solution for FEMA. Okay. I really do. And that is to bring back the militia in a productive, safe manner. Think about it, folks. You're not going to need FEMA anymore. If something comes down in your area, the sheriff will be able to call out on the militia, bring the militia in, and the militia can help the sheriff and the deputies secure the area. Nobody's guns got to get took. None of that stuff. Save a lot of money, too. Boy, Ron Paul will like that one real well, you know, that citizens that'll volunteer will step to the plate in times of disaster to help the sheriff and the deputies and emergency management people to get whatever the situation is under control.
As soon as Richard Mack had this conference, had this sheriff, and started the organizing of the sheriffs, he came under attack, and we got Vice President Biden's son trying to limit in Delaware, limit the arrest powers of the sheriffs. Is this a counterattack on Richard Mack's plan?
Yeah, but from the information I got yesterday from Keith Broders, it looks like that is failing, and we ought to be real thankful for that. The day they can start taking your sheriff's powers out, folks, it's going to be a sad day in America, because they'll replace that power with a federal entity, and federal entities just aren't supposed to have that power according to the 10th Amendment. Go read it. Here again, keeping things local within your communities and having the militia to back the sheriff would mean a whole lot. It basically comes down to the principles of the founders and what their intent for this nation was. we want to go back to the Constitution, people, then we have to do our part. Our part as citizens is to stand up, get with the sheriff, and by golly, offer him some assistance in the community. Make it a good thing, too. Here again, the militia took off on the wrong foot, as we know. Screaming war and some of the rhetoric we see out here on some of the sites is disturbing to me as well. I've been involved with the militia movement for 21 years, and I'm just as guilty as some of the others at probably spouting off some of that rhetoric. But there comes a time and place where you really got to start critiquing yourself. It's like I tell folks, anything you love, you're going to critique, because if you really love it, well, you're going to want to make it the best thing it can be. And you want to make it best for everybody, not just yourself. So we've got a lot of ideologies and stuff out there that are quite dangerous, that are within the patriot community themselves. As we see, attacks on each other, trying to falsely label people into arenas that they shouldn't be in.
Let me go back to that, because I've just several friends of mine have just been sued by Dr. Leonard Horowitz and his new concubine, whoever that is, Sherry Kane. They've been attacked, and True Ott's been attacked. Anthony Hilder has been sued by them, and they got after me because I had one encounter years ago with Horowitz, and they started putting it out that I'm a child molester. They started calling me a child molester. I mean, my sons are grown and raised. I don't live anywhere near, don't have any children. Yeah, but it didn't stop them. They just put it out there. People are putting out saying anything they can to try to demonize somebody.
That's correct. They really will. I've been called a federal plant, along with other people that supported Charles Dyer, which, believe me, folks, if you only seen my lifestyle and stuff, you'd realize that I'm the furthest thing from the truth. Just because I work with law enforcement in certain areas doesn't mean that, well, I'm giving them information to come and get you. It just means that I'm doing my part as a true militia member. True militia members are going to adhere to the law. They're going to be helpful in their communities. They're not going to wage war.
Let me ask you about something else here, and everything you're saying is accurate here. But why aren't our police, why aren't our sheriffs, why aren't our congressmen actually making something? Why aren't they making arrests? Why aren't they stopping?
Okay, let's be fair about this.
Okay.
Let's just be totally fair and objective. Let's put ourselves, let's say we're in the militia, let's take ourselves out of the militia for a minute. And let's look at it from, well, how just an everyday person these days would look at it. Not to say that the elected officials are right, but what we got to realize is this: when our rhetoric, our language, and our conduct is not helping us move along, it's being arbitrary to what we're doing. Look, it's real simple. The militia is actually more to blame about the media's frenzy against them than what the media is. And let me explain how. When we go out there and we start posting stuff all over the internet that actually just shows that they're right, well, who do we blame? Do we blame the media for grabbing it and posting it? Or do we blame ourselves for posting it out there to begin with? Look, folks, if the militia movement wants to grow, it's real simple. It's a simple thing. I don't understand why we haven't grasped it before now. Let's start being professional. Let's start doing what we were meant to do. Let's start being what we were meant to be. And that is community servants that help in our communities. Be productive. Put yourself into a sheriff's position. Just for a second. Here again, take yourself out of the militia and let's step into the sheriff's shoes. Got a militia building in your county and they're not communicating with you. And then you're reading all these reports about these independent militias that are just really bad news. Well, folks, if you're not communicating with that sheriff to know that, to let him know that you're there for him and his deputies, or her and her deputies, if you're not communicating with your community, what can you expect? What can you expect? We got to start thinking of these things if we're going to grow. I'll tell you what, when I first started talking about militia in the county, I was held back because of everything everybody's heard. But you should have seen the return, how it turned around after I had my presentation with my county, and people started learning, wow, the county officials are on with this. I'm not going to join something that's going to get me labeled a terrorist, or I'm not joining something that's illegal, because they don't understand. These are the things we must start thinking about as militia. If we want to grow, that's what we'll do. We will actually start getting our language in check. That'll take away the media's frenzy on us, folks. You'll actually start seeing politicians saying, wow, that tornado tore that town up, and them militia boys come right in there, and they were a blessing to us. Just like the Texas State Militia did up in Missouri last year.
Now, they have started, Arizona, for instance, I believe they just passed a state defense force.
Correct. That's equivalent to a militia.
Yes.
A state defense force is equivalent to a militia. It'd be interesting to see how they've got that broke up. I haven't had time to really study what's going on in Arizona because I live in Texas. I feel like Arizonans should be able to take care of Arizona just fine. Just as I live in Texas, well, us over here in Texas, we're going to take care of Texas just fine. That's the neat thing about it. But I do remember when some of that was going on, to where the governor, bless her heart, actually considered it, and I guess they have gotten that done. How it's set up, I have no idea.
Now, you've talked about the sheriffs. I put together an event here that was for Sheriff Dyer over in Cochise County. And the round tombstone, Douglas, things like that. And he's a good sheriff, doing the right thing, trying to get some backup. And the militias are there for him. They have one over there. So what I suggested was putting the veterans. Now, we've got thousands of homeless veterans right now that aren't being taken care of, that are basically being thrown away, discarded, because they don't want the veterans around. Now, I came up with a concept of restoring the basis of every civilization, the self-sufficient family farm. And if they go after the farmers, which they are doing right now, they're going after the organic farmers, they're going after the pot farmers, they're going after anybody that they can. They're trying to force people in other states to kill their hogs, kill their people. Now, somebody said, who would pay to take care of them? They work for themselves. They help grow the feed. They milk the goats. They mend the fences, and they're there to help the farmers or ranchers. If everything falls apart, you've got somebody there to defend the farm or ranch. Now, is this concept, to me, that would unite everybody. And if we grow our own food and generate our own electricity, we don't need the government or the banks for much. What about that? Would that work?
You're exactly right, Mr. Just let me throw something into that. Look, our founders produced a country where we could be independent, folks. We're supposed to be independent. An independent nation that's free is usually a happy nation that's free. You don't need to be taking care of everybody out there because, well, prosperity pretty well espounds. When you get a bunch of regulation and stuff, and the federal government steps in and starts wanting to take control of these things, it actually hurts not only our independence, but it starts to really degrade our prosperity as we see. I mean, just look at the condition of America right now financially. It's atrocious. This is what federal intervention is brought. And that's why I basically back Ron Paul. Ron Paul's been the only one that's ever addressed those issues. Ron Paul would like to see us become more independent and more prosperous.
And he would also like to see us end the war on drugs, which I think if a man with a badge can come up to you and say, what's that growing in your backyard? What's that in your pocket? Then you're in a police state. I'm sorry. I don't believe there ought to be any. If there's no corpus delicti, there is no crime. I don't believe we ought to have laws against victimless crimes. Because the whole prison system and the war on drugs, and Ron Paul points this out. He's the only one out there besides Gary Johnson that's pointing this out, that the war on drugs is a failure. They haven't stopped the drugs. They don't want to stop the drugs because the CIA and the Mossad are bringing the drugs in. They're feeding it to you.
That's
They're
right.
selling it to you. They're putting that money in their vaults in Mitt Romney's bank over there in the Cayman Islands. And, you know, and Clear Channel doesn't tell you that the whole war on drugs is a farce. It's to keep you enslaved, to keep you in prison. We've got more people in prison in America, Rick, than anywhere in the world, any communist country in the world. If a man with a badge...
Explainably so when we can start convicting people on a story.
That's right.
With no evidence. You know, our founders had a big problem with that.
Yes.
You know, our founders even said that it's better to let 1,000 heinous criminals roam the streets than what it is to convict one innocent man. Look, folks, if you're able to be armed and protect yourself, you really don't need the court system doing it for you. Bad people are bad people. If they come to harm you or your family, well, they're going to pay the price for it, the way our founders intended. That's why another reason they gave us the Second Amendment was not only so we could protect the security of our free states, but also to defend ourselves and our families from bad people. That's just the way it goes. So, yes, Mr. Douglas, we do got a lot of things that are against us in this nation. But we still have some things going for us, too. It's like the militia clauses hasn't been completely stripped out of every state. Matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, 3/4 of our states do have a militia clause for a citizen's militia. My hope is that our listeners will listen to me and say, you know what, Mr. Light's making a lot of sense. We ain't got to go around screaming at the top of our lungs about war and talking about 9/11 and all that stuff. We can simply take the law, produce a safe structure to bring back the citizens' militia. I can't think of any sheriff out there that wouldn't want a volunteer force that he could call upon or she could call upon if it was a safe structure that was set up right. Even some of these bad sheriffs we got out there, folks. Some people are telling me, well, you know, man, we have this bad sheriff, and I've asked them, have you even talked to him? Well, no, we ain't gonna waste our time with him.
No, we just read their newspaper. Hold on just a second, Rick.
Call recording has been completed.
All right, let me take off a couple of these things here. I'm going to keep you up here for just a moment. And I want to, let's see, I've got a few more minutes here. So let me stay here. Because the point I'm trying to get at here, if the militia and the veterans are joining the militia, they're very scared about that. They're very worried about that. Southern Poverty Law and ADL has been putting out, and Homeland Security have been putting out all the things to try to demonize the veterans again, same way they did when we came back from an illegal war in Vietnam.
That's right.
And if we get back the counties, I mean, if we start at county levels, what I've told people is if you can go to my site right now. You can buy a teepee that will house 6 veterans and put power in it anywhere in the United States for under $10,000. And if we worked as the counties to grow our own food and produce our own electricity, I don't think we need the bankers. I don't think we need the government in there. And what I'm talking about, you know, the old song, how you gonna get them back on the farm after they've seen L.A. If we restore the farmers and ranchers that I've talked to, said we can't get the help. The teenagers don't want to come out here. The college kids don't want to come out here. They don't want to work anymore. They don't want to work. Well, I think there's a lot of people that want to work. There's a lot of Americans homeless now. And if we do this on a county level and organize on a county level under the banner of the militia and the county sheriff, we can just say we don't need the government. And if we set this example in one county, one home at a time, one farm at a time, one ranch at a time, we're strengthening America and we're protecting it with the militia, because anytime if you don't have, just like down at the whole Texas, down where you're at, Arizona, where I'm at, is a war zone, according to a couple of generals that the state of Texas hired.
Yes, it is. Let me tell you, folks, it ain't pretty down here around the border. I'm 40 miles off the border. Now, let me tell you what we got going for us. We have a constitutional sheriff that believes in every citizen's right to protect him and his family. Period. When that warning went up that the cartel was starting to really cross the lines over here in Texas, our sheriff got with everybody he knew he could get with that lived like I do. I live very, very remotely. And well, he just can't get out here to us. It'd take my sheriff 45, 50 minutes to be able to get to my place. He told me and my wife flat out, look, if cartel starts showing up across that ranch you got, number one, Rick, you know what to do. As long as you're not confronting you, you call me and we'll take care of business. And I told him, yes, sir. He says, but on the other hand, if they come up armed to your house and you feel threatened, you do what you have to do to protect you and your wife and your property. And that was another yes, sir. The good news is this county, because of the sheriff, has a lot of its people work with it. I mean, keep tabs with the sheriff's department. We'll call them if we need them or we see something that's wrong. Same thing with the sheriff. If he knows that one of us that he can depend on are in an area that his deputy just can't get to, and he knows we can get to it, he'll have us. My sheriff's called me a couple times, said, Rick, I need you to go look at something for me real quick, if you would, buddy, and let me know if we need deputies out there.
I had the same relation.
And I would go look that situation over, and I would call Donnie back and tell Donnie, hey, look, no sense in sending a deputy over here. This is what the situation consists of. And then vice versa, if a deputy needed to come out there, I would tell him, look, you need to get a couple deputies out here. I'm going to keep an eye on this till you guys get here. Works out well. Because of it, we've had cartels try to come through our county one time. And let me tell you something, they did not fare well at all. They were caught immediately. So, because of that, cartel don't seem to, want to come through here much anymore.
Yeah, they'll come over here. They'll come over here to Pima County.
Yeah, if any of them cartel are listening to this radio station, know this. Edwards County, Texas, don't try it, buddy. You're going to get caught.
All right. Rick, I appreciate that. Now, I've got your book for next week. I believe next Thursday.
Okay.
And we'll talk about this because I'm setting up the libertyvillage.org site as basically a relay point. If you've got land, send me the information about the land. If you want people on it to work on it, tell me what you need, and we'll start taking applications and